Hello and welcome to the next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. So, Graham, I'm thoroughly looking forward to today's podcast. How's your pension looking? Are you going to be able to retire at any point? I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to.
I've been thinking very much about that for a little while now, and I've successfully decoupled from my IFA with a view to making another alternative choice. And we didn't get our guest on for that reason, but he's cropped up in my sort of vista, and so I'm really interested in what he has to say. He is the founder of Wealth Builders. Welcome to the next 100 Days, Kevin Whelan.
Hello. I hope you can manage with the double Kevins, but I'm sure we'll get through it. But thanks for the invitation, and always liking to chat with people who've got a lively sense of humour, but deep down trying to add value to their community. So I applaud you for that, gentlemen. So thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, it's
try not
really
to speak when Graham says, Kevin, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about Kevin is you're either talking to him or one of his dogs, because the dogs are in the background barking, and I think sometimes they're more intelligent. The questions come from the dogs, but you know
that's why I employ them as personal assistants. You see.
Yeah, well, we'll get straight on. Wealth Builders. You were an ex-corporate person at some stage in the past, and then you decided that wasn't for you quite a long time ago. And then you've built your own Wealth Builders business. So tell us a bit about that story.
Well, yes, I'm an economist by training, and so my degree is economics, and that's going way, way back. You can tell by the grey hair, no hair look, the wizened and aged expression. And what happened was, it's a little bit of a tragic story, but my father died when he was 46. He was a North Sea oil rig worker, had a good business. BP and others used to employ him to bring in other workers. So he had a good business, an agency business, so he was making money, and family was all looking good. Then at 46, he collapsed and died on an oil rig. They couldn't fly him off, bad weather conditions, and that was the end of him. Now, I was 25, trying to make a life as an economist, working in corporate banks. Hated the job, though, absolutely hated it. And kind of made a realization that because we were cut from the same genetic cloth, we walk the same, we talk the same. Actually, we're from your neck of the woods, Kevin. I grew up anyway, in Northumberland, in Newcastle upon Tyne. And anyway, the reason for saying that is because when he went, the family went backwards. He didn't have a will, didn't have any life cover, didn't really put things in place. And so many businesses overlook that. And it's true of successful employed people as well. I've now later discovered that lots of things that should be on the to-do list don't get done. Anyway, how that relates back to me is I was thinking about my life, and I'd met the woman I wanted to marry. And I decided, and it was a decision I made when I was 28, that I wouldn't trade time for money ever again. And I would build things. My brain was lively, and I could work out, well, actually, what you need to do is build things you can own that give you a recurring income. And if you've got them, you don't need to be there. And so that realization came slowly. So I made that decision in 89, and it put it in action, in other words. And from then, I've just really built businesses, a series of businesses, 6 in total, all creating recurring income, but all wrapped around a common theme, which is money and finance, because that's my area of knowledge. And now I'd say fundamentally, I'm a teacher, I'm a guide, and that's what I love to do. And I share the message on how to create financial independence with successful income-earning people who then realize there's a tragic difference between the level of income they're used to in their jobs or in their businesses and the eventual money that they will get when they look at their pensions. Hence, I assume the question when Kevin was asked you, how's your pension looking? And for most business owners, my business is my pension, or property owners, my property is my pension. And for job holders, the job isn't the pension, but the pension is the pension. And of course, when you take stock, almost everybody, in fact, 95% of the population do not become financially independent. And the figures are worse for business owners. I mean, here's a tragic number. Of the 5 million business owners in the UK, 0.1% of them sell their business for more than $1 million. In other words, pension type money, decent money. It's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. And consequently, over the years, I've become skilled in sharing and replicating for others what I do. I became completely financially independent at 45. So decades later, I don't need to do a thing, but I enjoy the sharing. And Wealth Builders does what it says on the tin, teaches people how to become financially independent or wealthy. And that's the story. So short question, I know, Graham,
No,
long answer.
A good answer, and it's not your first rodeo. I mean, you've done lots of podcasts yourself, and you've obviously well trained. And if you were financially independent at 45, now by the look of you're the better part of, well, my age, and I'm not going to say how old, but I mean,
don't insult the guest. It's not right.
Oh no, and that's part of what we do. We regularly insult guests because I think it's part and parcel. But the genuinely, I think if you were financially independent at that time, what a wonderful, and particularly, what was it, about a year before?
A year before,
earlier than when your father passed on.
It was exactly that.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to, if I died at 46, I wanted to leave my family in a completely financially independent state where they had an income coming in that if I wasn't there to generate the income, then they were unaffected. And things have just grown since then. And of course, way back then, no internet, remember? No mobile phones, nothing.
It's a bit like that in Northumberland now, actually. But don't worry.
That feels like that some days, Graham.
I like the telepathy that's working between you two, though. But, I mean, there was no tried and tested route. There's no path. So, by trial and error and a few mistakes along the way, of course, you're bound to make mistakes, and I did a couple of those. Took me about 15 years then. And now I can teach anybody to do it in 5.
Five
years of constant effort, time, and openness. And it takes humility to understand that you don't know enough to be financially independent. Otherwise, you'd be on the track. So if you get that, you can make it happen pretty much for anybody.
Is the ideal time to recruit somebody into your membership, into your circle, pre-50, or does it really matter?
It doesn't matter. I think that because if you've got, it's kind of the principles are, first of all, you need the humility, but there's some arrogance around, and higher the income, higher the business. Sometimes that really means for a closed mind, not an open mind. But once you've got the humility, you need a little bit of finance. You can even do it without it, but that's another story. An interest in wanting to take ownership and control and not to delegate everything, because delegation, in my experience, turns into abdication pretty damn fast, which is the reason why the pensions industry makes a fortune on lackluster performance and generally poor value, but it still remains a hugely profitable industry because the individuals themselves take no interest in it. They don't know how it works, so consequently, they just allow a siphon to be stuck into their pension life, often 2%, and if average returns are 6%, it's a third of your money disappearing in fees. It's like the Matrix, somebody sticks a siphon in your life and all that money comes sucking out and you don't know what to do. So you have to be willing to be interested enough to take control, and then you have to put a little bit of time into it. And therein lies often the challenge for business owners and successful employees. They're often time poor. So we've got to find that time. And if you get those 3 bits right, 5 years will do it. Yeah. If some of those things don't quite fit the jigsaw puzzle, it can take a little bit longer.
And is where we're at right now it depends how you look at it, but at the top of a bull run, with some tricky things ahead of us, potentially. I think one of the things that you said on your own website was that, was it back in 2008, we had people who were losing 30 or 40% of their pension pots.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a bit of a scary thought, probably for Kevin and I, given our respective ages, and we're very similar in terms of age. But basically, we're not that far away from pension. But whether we opt for it at that time is another story. But is there a particular thing that you're advising people now in your circle, in that 5%, shall we say, is there a particular thing that they should be doing to sort of counter I mean, for instance, if you're too heavily into stocks, probably not the best thing in the world to do or to be.
Well, I think the way we articulate it is there are 7 and only 7 assets that you can use to build wealth. So you have to own or control, and ideally own, assets, things that you own that aren't you, that put money in your bank account while you're asleep, and that those assets will continue to throw off income even if you're not there. Now, there are 7 of those, and the skill, definitely in economic times, the turbulent storm that's ahead with spiraling inflation, interest rates on the rise, recession, and social unrest like you've not seen since the 70s, really, we're in a position where people are now worried and genuinely worried. I think the best thing to do is build assets, because if you build them, you're protecting yourself from storms, because you're building a financial fortress of income from a diverse range of sources. And when you get that diversification working, then an economic storm can make you feel uncomfortable, but it doesn't devastate you in any way, shape, or form. So it's taking the time to understand that. So one of the misnomers, I think, and it's a sacred cow I'm willing to shoot right here and right now, is that there's too much of an over-reliance on the stock market as a source of wealth. And it fundamentally doesn't work for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, I've already alluded to, the huge amount of money that comes out in fees means your funds have got to work incredibly hard just to pay the fees. And the second is almost all funds are what we call long only, which means they just run. Okay, so you're on a wave. And then when you get to a certain point, and you don't know when that point's going to be, the wave, you've just then got a value. And now you've got to take an income for which you want certainty for a value which is fundamentally uncertain. Because there's no predictable recurring income thrown off from the stock market. The only predictable income that's thrown off is back to the pensions and the insurance industry, because they keep the siphon in and the 2% comes out and out and out, whether the market goes up or goes down. So there are many things to do for those who are in the stock market, including how to pay less fees. We think most people are overpaying by at least 50%. And you can cut that way, way back down. You can still get good service for that. You can involve yourself with risk mitigation, so you can stop devastation from falls. There are techniques and tips you can use to do that. But the best thing to do is understand that you can't add value to the stock market. So we'll learn to build assets that you can add value, such as a business, such as property, such as creating intellectual property, such as spotting opportunities where there's so much information available now, but it's almost become a blizzard of information, like grabbing a cup from Niagara Falls. There's so much information, it confuses. So you can simplify and make communities around good practices and maybe socially and environmentally good things for the world. And you can build communities and build an income stream from membership. So Wealth Builders fundamentally is a membership business. It wins its business by continuing to serve. Because if we don't continue to serve, they'll stop their membership. So every ounce of our being in the team is to continue to deliver ways to show people how to build more wealth in a faster, safer, more enjoyable way than hoping the stock market works for them. Again, long answer for a short question, but
no, I'm not interrupting. I would normally be interrupting because, at the end of the day, it's, just can't help myself. But your answers are so
I normally
compelling.
can't get a word in edgeways because Graham's constantly interrupting.
Well, no, that's not strictly true. But what I'm interested in is your answer. And I think you mentioned one of those 7 pillars that you talk about. And one was that's kind of stuck out for me was IP, was intellectual property that you own or at least control. Yeah. Can you just flesh that one out for us? Because that's the bit that I'm not 100% sure of.
Sure. I mean, it's a difficult one because it's one that you have to build over time. Essentially, it's about multiplying, repurposing, repackaging, and monetizing what you know and what you're outstanding at.
Got you.
Or what you can become outstanding at.
Yeah.
Phrase used by a guy who I respect called Daniel Priestley, who says, we're all standing on a mountain of value, but we're not seeing it because it's right under our feet and we're looking away from it. And that's a continual thing. And it's a big issue when it comes to helping successful employed people and business owners transition into being wealthy from being dependent. And often they become newbies at property or newbies at investing, when in fact they've got all this value, this incredible integrity, this intellect, things they've discovered they're brilliant at, that they're not wrapping up in their DNA as they become investors or property owners. And I said, well, start with that.
Yeah.
So everybody's got it. We've all got a brain, and we just need a checkup from the neck up. And if we do that, we can start to say, well, what am I really good at? What I've been told I'm really good at? What am I seeing? What's my perspective of life? What are my values? And how could I turn that into value for others? And that's, if you think about it, that's all I've done. I've been able to make financial distinctions over time, and I package that and make it easy for people to follow, and then they pay for it because it works. And if it continues to work, then I get information from the community. I just launched last night, for example, a challenge for 6 weeks, because we're in such dark and stormy times. 6 weeks of focus to every week to find, save, or make money that's hidden to you, but you discover it not just because Kev's smart and he can find things for you, but the community finds something and they go, oh, I just found this and I made money on this, shared with the community. So that we're bringing the power of the distinctions of everybody. And I've been able to do that, whereas people will find their own little, oh, I can get 175 quid if I move my bank account. I can do this and do this. There's no shortage of information, but people don't act on it until they feel part of a community.
Interesting.
So that's what IP is. Whether it's books, whether it's memberships, whether it's courses, whether it's one of my clients who was a consultant was charging £250 a day when she came into our program. But just by looking at the value of money she had, or not the value of money, the value of her skill set, she's now charging over £1,000 a day. It's the same person, but just realizing the value that she had. That's another skill that we stop people and go, what are you already great at? Well, just put the price up, because you're delivering value. So just get well paid for it instead of undervaluing it.
So is this a sort of a community where you're almost like a mastermind, that where you put on a chair and other people are sort of asking questions and sort of grilling you? Is it, or is it more of a kind of like Facebook sharing? Oh, that's interesting. Or how does that interaction with you or with other people who are helping out? How does that work? That's
a good question. It's a combination of things, because people want touch points in different ways. We process information and learn in different ways. So for some, it's self-help through online course materials, so self-study. For others, they want the accountability of coaching. So we've got 8 coaches in the program, and they coach every single month. So holding people to account. You said you're going to do this, particularly things like making wills and doing powers of attorney. Have you done it? You said you're going to do it. Let's make sure you get it done before we move on. So holding people to account when they're busy is a good thing. Facebook groups and focus groups. So any combination. So Facebook groups will be wider. Focus groups will be on something specific like IP. How do you write a book? What's the best way to collect your thoughts? What's the best way to then orchestrate that? How do you package that? How do you publish that for yourself? All that kind of thing. And then wider than that, masterminds on very, very specific deep dives on things like how to control your pension through a special kind of pension that we may or may not talk about, which is the most powerful thing I've seen in 30 years. So we should talk about it.
No, we should. And this is a deliberate interrupt, because you've now whet my appetite so much. Kevin Appleby and I were talking about this thing called an SSAS, which Kevin Appleby, what does that actually stand for?
I have no idea, Graham. You're going to have to tell me.
Well, no, I think I should defer to the expert.
Well, first of all, I'd say that the word pension is obviously a bit grey and dreary, a bit like the weather in Northumberland, I suppose. and consequently, it puts a dampener on people's willingness to open the box and peer in. Yeah. But the SAS, or small self-administered scheme, wow. I mean, what on earth is that? What on earth is that? It wouldn't win any prizes for marketing title, would it?
No.
You wouldn't. And the award for best marketing logo of the year goes to the small self-administered. No, it wouldn't. But it's legal terminology. It's a bit like a little oasis of wonder and opportunity in the world of pensions that sits in a little sliver of land between the big pensions that are the SIPs, self-invested personal pensions and personal pensions on the one side, and the big companies, you work for a big employer on the other, where they're massive. And somebody's in control and somebody's doing the work and the fees are being paid and nobody's really paying attention. And the little sliver of land is only available to entrepreneurs. It's an SME and small. Small means less than 12. So as long as you've got less than 12 in the scheme, right, you become your own runner, business owner, MD of your own money.
Right.
And that's what small self-administered scheme. So scheme means pension. So it's a small scheme. Self-administered means self-directed. You run it. It's an eligibility issue. The Inland Revenue have to approve you, but we've got 100% track record in approvals. So business owners who say, no, enough's enough. I'm not letting somebody else have my money. I'm going to put my money together with my spouse or my business partners. I can bring in my kids when they're 18 to make it a real family affair, which has got some incredible benefits. But I'm going to own and control my own money, just pay a small administration fee for someone to do the legal technical work, but I'm going to run it, whether I lend money to my company, whether I buy the premises I'm working in, whether I buy a property portfolio, whether I buy stock market, but at a fraction of the price because I'm a wholesale customer, not a retail customer, whether I invest in crowdfunding, whether I become a bank and lend money either to my company or to other people. Whatever you can do in wealth, if we took all the 7 pillars that you alluded to, every single way you can build wealth, your pension can come into play. So it becomes a part of your future. And for most people, their pension seems to be a relic of the past. Like it's consigned to a box that says, do not disturb this box till I'm 65. It's a bit like, you remember the old Blue Peter, when they used to put a box in the ground and they'd say, let's open it up. This is 1970. Let's open it up in 2000 and see what the world's like. That's exactly what people do with their pensions. They stick them in a box and somebody looks after them and charges them a fortune. And they open the box and go, what the hell happened?
Yeah, well, the ones in the northeast were all dug up by Geordies and distributed amongst themselves, weren't they? So
robbers of Egypt, is it something like that?
Kevin, if you're thinking about putting together a SAS, is there a point at which it gets too late? As for instance, Graham and I, we've both turned 60. We're both running our own businesses. Therefore, on the basis of what you've just described, we would be eligible, but have we left it too late to do it?
Definitely not. And the reason for that is because it's never too late to reduce your fees, never too late to take more control. And if you've got longevity, if you imagine, even statistically, we're probably going to live to 85, maybe longer, but that's another 25 years. It's a generation of time. And of course, if we want to leave a better legacy for our family, we're creating a family trust, and that family trust then lives beyond us, which means nobody else can reduce that pension. For many, especially employed people, Graham, when we talked off air just briefly about the number of employed people who are looking to transition from corporate life into a life where they've got more time back and they've got their life more on their terms, and that means you've got to be financially independent really to be able to achieve that. So many of them don't realize that the breadwinner has a pension. I'll give you an example. I was talking to one of our new members the other day, and we were having this very, very discussion. And he said, well, I've got a really great pension in my company. I go, okay, tell me about it. He told me about it. £50,000 a year at 60. He's 53 now. It's a good pension, right? You go, I'll take that. Absolutely fine. How old's your wife? 10 years younger. Fine. So if you die, she gets 25,000. You've got 3 kids. What will they get? Nothing. So you go 100% of the value, 50% of the value, 0 value. The alternative was a lump sum transfer value in exchange for that. So give up the 50, 25, 0, 1.8 million. Okay. We have a serious conversation. Obviously, it will take many, many months for that conversation to really sit with the family and decide what they want to do. But I don't know. What would you do? It's not really a fair question because everybody's situation is different. But the difference between having 1.8 million, which you can then interact and grow with, you can then leave 100% of that to your spouse and whatever it's grown to, and then leave all of that to the next generation, and then the next generation and the next generation. There's a powerful argument to say, take some time to take a look at that, as opposed to just assuming, well, my company takes care of me, because it's not quite the same.
And the company would have to survive you. Otherwise, presumably, the assets within that SAS would become subject to IHT, or am I conflicting things here?
Well, I'm certainly not going to criticize your knowledge, but a company has to be formed or already existing in order to have one.
Yeah,
but the trust is separate and independent.
Right.
So the trust outlives anybody, outlives the company, and there's never any IHT.
Right.
So while it's building, there's no income tax, no corporation tax, no capital gains tax, no inheritance tax, never pay any national insurance, and anything you pay in, you get all the tax you pay that you've either earned in your company or yourself. It's like free money. Yeah. So you put money in, get money from the government, and then it grows completely tax-free. Yeah. And then you can draw money out in the future, unlimited withdrawals, including lots and lots of tax-free cash. So it's just a very, very powerful way to accelerate your wealth almost in a frictionless way.
I recently, probably, 3-4 years ago, set up a SIP, a self-invested pension plan. And basically, about a year ago, came across actually somebody who came onto this podcast, and they had a fantastic opportunity as an investment opportunity. I kind of knew the company, did a bit of work with them separately, and effectively, I wanted to invest in them.
Yeah.
Asked the SIP people, and no. The computer says no. And I'm thinking, well, it's my money, but no, you have to invest in these funds, etc. Can't invest in this thing that you think is going to do really well. Mm-hmm. You've done your due diligence and all the rest of that. Mm-hmm. No, it's a straight no. With the SAS, that'd be a straight yes.
The answer is yes. As long as you're not connected to the company, you're not an owner of the company.
No.
So then the answer is yes. So whatever you choose to do, the way I try and have people think about it, and whatever the pot size is, doesn't matter. But, let's not do 1.8 million because that's a big pot.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a decent pot when somebody's reached 60. Let's say, for the sake of an argument, nice and easy, it's 400 grand, say, right? Yeah. Just for a number. Okay, then. So you got 400,000. Imagine you got a check, 400,000. And you decided that's the money I need to use to build your wealth. And it's the government changed the rules and said, you know what, pensions, nobody's really likes them. Do what you want. Just do whatever the hell you want. But take it seriously. Do some good due diligence. Build your wealth for yourself and your family. Just do a good job with it. Mm-hmm. Would you take that 400 grand and put it straight back to where it is now with the funds, paying the fees? Or would you go, let me have a think about that? Would I invest in this? Would I invest in that? Would I build this? Would I build that? Would I help my business? Would I help somebody else's business? What would I do with cash? And pretty much whatever you want to do, there are one or two exceptions, of course there are, you can't do, but not because computer says no, but because taxman says no. And there's a world of difference between the two. I just happen to have knowledge and expertise in that area because when I discovered this, for a computer says no scenario, which the computer originally said yes. And then when I went to do it, the computer went, no, we changed our mind. And I went, I'm a bit of a control freak. You probably picked that up.
Hence, that didn't occur to me at all. Doesn't come through your videos or anything like that. Not at all.
No, it doesn't.
It's not on my pad here.
All right, okay. And I said, no, never going to happen again. No, I have to take control. The best way to do that is to do a SAS, learned about SAS. Because it's not on the IFA agenda. I am a qualified IFA just because it's important to me to have the knowledge and the competence, and I've got my certificate on the wall and all that.
Sure.
And it is up to date. And when I discovered it, most IFAs wouldn't recommend it. And I talked to other IFAs about it. And the reason they won't recommend it is because if somebody takes control of their own money, they kind of don't need you. Mm-hmm. You know, they might for a bit of it, perhaps, but generally speaking, it isn't really normal. And computer says no. Well, we've heard that phrase, but we've also heard another phrase that turkeys don't vote for Christmas. And for every 1,000 schemes we do, when we convert people's SIPs to SASs, nobody's ever gone back from SAS to SIP. And nobody paid the same fees back to their IFA that they were paying before. And most of them disconnect to the IFA, so the IFAs don't like it. They don't recommend it. It's not on their radar. It's not on their training. And it doesn't take too long for me to have a conversation with an IFA to discover they don't really know very much at all. They've just heard of it, but don't really know the true power. Because if they did, they'd recommend more. But if they did that, they'd build a stronger relationship with the family, the next generation, because it's an intergenerational plan. They would actually do a better job, because there's going to be a tsunami of money flowing from the baby boomers to the next generation. And for the most part, the IFAs who dealt, they dealt with the older generation, they're going to miss out on that. So there's going to be a lot of money lost in future generations to the industry. And I think a SAS would be a perfect foil for them to learn. But, I can't.
Is it likely to be disbanded or dissuaded from future government, or is it enshrined? Once you've got one, tough, can't touch it.
Yeah, it's enshrined in law, actually. I mean, the SAS has been going since the 1970s.
Right.
But it's just, as I say, it's really only for business owners. So most employees would never hear of it. But I think we've seen a growth, particularly for those who are buying property portfolios, buy-to-let, that sort of thing. And they've recognized they need to build wealth. They've become companies because the government intervened with the tax on landlords. And so most people are now companies, and we've seen a huge spike in the interest from property owners saying, well, hold on a minute, I want to buy more property. This pension over here, 400 grand, say, that could buy a lot of property, but I can't buy property where it is. So they move it to a SAS, and then that money becomes available for them to grow their wealth. So it's a tremendous way to open the opportunities for you to do what you want to do. But therein lies the rub. You've got to be willing to get involved and be empowered to make your own decisions, and not go, can you do it for me? Because the only way for someone to do it for you is go back to the...
Well, I don't like the idea of delegating. I've now changed, as I mentioned earlier, that I don't like the idea of delegating to somebody else to lose money for me as well. So basically, if I'm going to lose it, I might as well lose it myself. But the interesting thing is, I'm in a period now where I'm learning so much more about what I am invested in, and so much more about where I should be sort of going from and to. This thing, I think, from my point of view, without getting to too much personal detail, is something I'm seriously considering, because why not? Because I think there's a fairly easy and long-term thing that I can do for my family. I'm in the death range at the moment, because Mum died, earlier than me, shall we say, in terms of age. Dad died a little bit later. So basically, as long as I can keep myself healthy, I can get beyond that. That's one of the goals. It's a bit like, as a Leeds United fan, you set the goals really low, then fail to achieve them. But
I remember when I supported a football club like that, we set the goals really high.
God, blimey. You've been in the wilderness for years, Kevin.
Who do you support, Mr. Appleby?
Oh, Newcastle United, of course.
So I'm a big Newcastle United fan. Oh. My dog is called Alan. My black lab is called Alan. My wife wants to get a puppy to call it Shearer, so we got the matching set. But
that'd be nice. That would be nice.
My spaniel's called Bruno.
Hey, it must be a young one then.
I thought he played for Man United.
He was around before the Brazilian player, though. Just pure
okay, smart man. Yeah. Here's another point, though, just for a different audience to us old and crusties. For those who are making that transition. I remember it's a very distinctive story, actually. So if you don't mind, I'll share it. I met a guy who was around 52, used to work for a bank, big bank, had a big final salary. And anyway, long story short, we took a year. He got into it, moved the money, which was, let's say £1 million just for an easy number. But he wanted to create a lifestyle now.
Okay.
He didn't want to wait till he was 65 to get access to the money. And two things happened with his SAS. One is he borrowed money from his SAS to buy a franchise, and now is an action coach franchise and doing well. And two, he was able to invest in property. And the reason he wanted to invest in property and create a property income now is because he had a daughter with cystic fibrosis, which I'm not medically trained, but I'm told is like breathing through a straw. And you can imagine COVID must have been like for that, which is a life-shortening illness. And that's the pragmatic thing to say about that. So he wanted property in her name so that he knew she wouldn't get the legacy of the pension, but to provide that legacy today. And the SAS was able to do that. So it's very, very powerful as a bridge for people who want to move. So their pension can play a role in the transition from corporate life into a life where you've got more time with your family. And any time you spend with your family is much more precious than spending time at work, isn't it?
Well, as we said earlier, we shouldn't be rude to guests, but I mean, we've got two Newcastle United fans on here, but one that's bringing a tear to my eye, and you, Kevin Whelan. But you know what can I say? I mean, it's really not. Wealth Builders is a community, is a sort of membership scheme. Is it a costly thing to join?
No, I mean, we have memberships from nothing, for people who are really at the beginning of their journey. So we support them with a free Facebook group and free materials and give them my books for free. I've written 3 books and 2 of them are available free. The third one isn't because I co-authored it and he wouldn't let me do it for free, but there you go. We've got the challenge, for example, 6-week challenge, which we've guaranteed to find £1,000 for everybody at least, but we're charging £95. So it's like 10x your money, or I'll take the risk. So £95, not expensive, is it really?
No, of course not.
The main program is £3,000, but it's coached, and the program for self-study is £1,500. In fact, it's less than that now, because we've dropped our prices to help people in current economic storm. I think we're doing it £995, so £1,000, give or take. So no, it's not expensive. I mean, if people want to work with me, yes, it's expensive, but I don't offer that because I leave room for about 20 mentees a year, people who really need help because they've either got a lot of money, a lot of time, and they've got a real serious plan to do it in 18 months to 2 years, not 5 years.
Yeah.
But that's through their choice. And, so I'm happy to be a mentor to some people. But in the end, it's my IP. That's the principles that are being delivered by my team. So I just get the joy of speaking about us in podcasts and speeches and keynotes and things like that and books. Don't really do much personal work anymore. Because I'm better actually at telling the story than I am about delivering each word on a page.
Well, I don't know about you, Kevin Appleby, but I've been seriously impressed with Kevin Whelan on this week's episode of the Next 100 Days podcast.
So, Graham, some serious thinking to do there. Kevin Whelan has given us some real challenges this morning. I certainly wasn't really aware of what you could do with an SSAS.
No, me. Some of my clients have been more interested in investors who have SSAS or SAS pensions as opposed to SIP pensions, not least because of the reason I mentioned earlier, that SIP's kind of a little bit restrictive and relative to SASs. So basically, I think it's something that I have not spent enough of my time revising and understanding, and I certainly intend to. And I think Wealth Builders, and you can find more information at wealthbuilders.co.uk, and you'll find resources there and how to get in touch with Kevin's team.
Indeed. I think I'm going to be across there after the podcast, Graham.
Yeah, a good thing to too as well. And there's an awful lot there, and even down to that sort of, if you think about the things that we've talked about in this podcast, ask the question about IP, because that's one of the pillars of the 7 pillars. If you think about the kinds of things that we've talked about over the last 350 or so episodes, that is IP is something we've talked about, books and sort of, effectively, you're selling yourself and your skills, etc., whether that's, to build your authority, etc. But if you then, we've also talked about memberships and all kinds of things like that. I guess in a way, what Kevin's done is identify those sorts of things and say, well, look, those are the sort of things that can get money coming at you or attract money to you on a regular basis whilst you're sleeping.
Absolutely. It's interesting that Kevin should mention Daniel Priestley as he's talking.
Yeah, no, he's a big favourite of yours, isn't he? Yeah.
And one of Daniel's things is key person of influence. And that's all about writing your book. Guess what? Kevin's written 3 books.
Yeah. And I think that's, is something that you and I have to think about because, I'm sure that you could write the book for us. I think you've got plenty of time on your hands, Kevin, and I'll co-author it.
I'd love to have plenty of time on my hands.
Yeah, no, at some stage we will write.
Last time you picked up a golf club, Graham?
Oh goodness, that's like threatening the neighbourhood, isn't it? Really, I mean, I don't tend to play on the course, but it's usually around it. But no, I genuinely think it's something that the whole idea of creating financial freedom is something that we both, when we left corporate, we wanted to have that, or at least a part of that. So we have a certain amount of freedom, but financial freedom slightly different. It's a wonderful situation to be in, to be financially free at aged 46. That's pretty damned impressive. And today's guest, Kevin Whelan, I hope he's going to be able to help you if you're listening to this and thinking, I don't have any of this in my financial area, but I could have. And I think that's why I think, use this opportunity to go and find out more from Kevin and his team. So today, I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.